Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning. Good morning. There we go, much better. I'd like to thank everybody for being here today. First of all, we'd like to make some brief announcements. How about a round of applause for the Larry Moore Trio? They provided music for us this morning. Always a very popular venue. Refreshments this morning were provided by Coffee with a Conscience, Antigua, Mr. Green's, which is a Choice Neighborhood Initiative loan client, Chicken Dude, and Pete's Pops, all are clients of Wisconsin Women's Business Initiative Corporation. Let's give them and Wibbick a round of applause. And now we'd like to welcome some of our dignitaries that we have here today. First of all is State Representative David Bowen. I know I saw him earlier. There he is. Round of applause. And is Dr. Hendrick Williams. She's the director of Governor Evers' Milwaukee office. There she is. And I know she's here with the intern, but you know, we're being very careful. No, just kidding. All right. Are there any other elected officials, alder people? Oh, there's one in back I'm seeing waving. Who is that? Oh, that guy. I'm sorry I couldn't see you with the glare, but thank you very much for being here today. Anybody else? Oh, there's a... Oh, wonderful. Thank you. Yeah! Outstanding. Yes, sir. Grant Randall. Anybody else? We don't want to leave anybody out. Okay, one more round of applause for all our dignitaries today. And now I'd like to introduce, they're going to help us later on with our flag demonstration and things. Would the honor guard from American Legion Post 416 please stand and be recognized? Thank you for your service, and we appreciate you being here today. Are there any other veterans, anybody from any branch of the service, either active or retired, that would you please stand? Because this is a day for recognition. Thank you all for your service. We very much appreciate all your efforts and your sacrifice that you made, and thank you, gentlemen from the American Legion Post. Would my board of directors from Trevole please stand and be recognized? Kimberly, Mr. Crosby, and we'll have a little report later on if you're not familiar with Trevole and what it does, but we've got some exciting information for you. I think that's it. We have all the dignitaries. If anybody has slid in, you know, please let us know. We'll make sure that you're recognized and introduced. So next, I believe we have the Bugler Reveille. Is that coming up, Paul? Oh, okay, because it was on my book. Okay, would you all please stand? We're going to do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Right, thank you. Next, I would like to call on or invite Bishop Darrell Hines of the Christian Faith Fellowship Church, of which he's the pastor for, and he's going to do our invitation for us.
First of all, let me say thanks for allowing me to be a part of this. Many people don't realize, but back in the early 60s, my family and I, we lived in hillside projects, and that's when you had the incinerators and you had to take the garbage out to the incinerators to have them burned. I got plenty of whippings watching War Rogers when I forgot to take the garbage out. But thank you for creating ripples of hope. My family, we've all benefited by it. And so I want to pray that God will continue to bless you and that your work continue. Father, we thank you this day for this time of sharing, and we thank you for the wonderful work that is being done, creating ripples of hope for 75 years here in the city of Milwaukee. People need help, and we thank you for those who send and reach out a helping hand. For you said in your word that we do good to others. It is better to give than receive. And so let them continue to be blessed. Let them continue to bless those who need it. And Father, continue to keep us forever before your presence. This is my prayer, this event, let your hand be on it and let your work be done for your glory. In Jesus Christ's name I pray, amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you very much, Bishop Hines. We appreciate you being here. All right, well, it's my official duty to now call this meeting to order. So I'd like to officially call the 2019 annual meeting of the Housing Authority for the City of Milwaukee to order. And roll call, please.
Mr. Perez?
Aye.
Commissioner Donald?
Present.
Commissioner Daniels?
Here.
Commissioner Lott?
Present.
Commissioner Wagner?
Here.
Commissioner Diaz?
Aye.
Commissioner Van Alstine?
Here.
Commissioner Vandenberg? First item on the agenda is approval of the consent agenda.
Move the resolution, makes approval, please.
Second.
Okay, and that is a non-debatable topic, so we will now take the vote on that, please.
Mr. Perez? Commissioner Donald?
Aye.
Commissioner Daniels?
Aye.
Commissioner Lott?
Aye.
Commissioner Wagner?
Aye.
Commissioner Diaz?
Aye.
Commissioner Van Alstine?
Aye.
Commissioner Vandenberg? Next item under the agenda, under reports and discussion items.
It's my not obligation, but my pleasure to now take a moment to thank everybody for taking again the time out of your busy schedules to join us today. I'd like to once again acknowledge all of our dignitaries, but also all of you in our audience today. We appreciate you taking out time of your schedules to be here. And I don't know how Mr. Perez does it, but I think this is at least the 7th year in a row, possibly 8th. We have just a beautiful, glorious day. So keep up the good work.
That's by the grace of God.
Okay, well, put yourself down for a raise. Just kidding.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I just want to make a brief comment. Every year, this annual meeting seems to get better. And when if someone would have told me that on the hottest day of the year, we're all going to sit in the parking lot under a tent, and the tent would be full, I would not have believed them. Director Perez, I don't know how you do it, but it just gets better each year.
Leadership counts, and we got some of that right there. So the big guy is there. Mayor Barrett, I wish you would somehow the name came out a little smaller than what I wanted to, but it's your leadership that makes it happen. You are in a construction site, by the way, so mind your steps.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much. As we gather here today for the Housing Authority's annual meeting, we celebrate our 75th anniversary. The Housing Authority, established in 1944, with the Housing Authority's first construction projects, North Lawn, Berryland, and South Lawn, which, if you're not aware, were all veterans housing to accommodate soldiers returning from World War II and the families of those who did not return. And it was an amazing step forward that was taken by the city. Today, we are on the site of the Housing Authority's newest project, Victory Manor, a 60-unit veterans preference development with on-site supportive services provided by the Center of Veterans Issues. And I know that some of the individuals are here, and you'll be able to meet and talk with them later in the day. We'll also talk about other partnerships in providing veteran supportive housing later in the program. I also would like to make mention, if you're not aware, that this year, 2019, celebrates the 75th anniversary of the invasion of Normandy, better known as Operation Overlord, or better known as D-Day. It is the 75th anniversary, June 6th, 1944. 6,600 fighting soldiers, airmen, and sailors lost their lives in the initial attack on Gold, Juneau, Utah, Sword, and Omaha Beach. And so I want to take a moment to give a moment of silence for all of those that sacrificed their lives in that battle that won our war for us. Thank you very much. Next, our next speaker absolutely needs no introduction, but on behalf of the Board of Commissioners for the Housing Authority of the City of Milwaukee, I have the great pleasure and honor of introducing the CEO of the City of Milwaukee, Mayor Tom Barrett, who has been one of the Housing Authority's biggest champions and recognizes that HACM team excels at managing through uncertainty to provide a continuum of high quality of housing options that support self-sufficiency, good quality of life, and the opportunity to thrive. Please join me in welcoming Mayor Tom Barrett.
Good morning. It is great to see this tent filled, and I do share the sentiment about the weather. I always think, okay, I know summer is really upon us when we have this annual meeting because it's always such a gorgeous day. So again, congratulations. And as I was thinking about the 75th anniversary, I couldn't help but think about growing up on the west side of Milwaukee. I have not been around for 75 years, just to be clear. But my family, when I was a little boy, grew up on 40th and Febrons, which is 3 blocks directly east of Park Lawn. And one of my earliest memories in life was I have a sister who's about 15 months older than I am. We had a babysitter, and we decided one day to have a play date with the babysitter, and we went over to Park Lawn, and we were playing over there, again, just 3 blocks from home. But the part that I remembered most was that she decided, she being our babysitter, that a great place to have a picnic would be on one of the islands in Sherman Boulevard. If you're a mother, you can imagine what was going through my mother's mind, because my mother was very mild-mannered. But when she found out that our probably 13-year-old babysitter had a picnic in the islands on Sherman Boulevard, I remember that conversation. 60 years later, I remember that conversation. So we always had very fond thoughts of Park Lawn as our neighbor. But as a member of Congress, and more importantly as mayor, I have been able to see firsthand how our housing authority is literally in the business of hope and respect. It's in the business of creating hope and respect for residents of our city. And that's something that's very, very important to me. It's very, very important, obviously, to the leadership here, because all of us, as human beings, want to have a place where we can go and be ourselves, we can relax, we can be safe, and the Housing Authority provides that for thousands of people. So I want to thank the commissioners. Let's give the commissioners a round of applause for your oversight as well. What has always struck me also about the Housing Authority is that it's not just bricks and mortar. We can see the construction going on around us. We can see the beautiful Victory Manor here that's coming up. But it's also about services. And from tutoring, from summer employment, from financial literacy. The Housing Authority gives our residents the tools they need to be sufficient, self-sufficient. And I love going to these ceremonies because I'm invited to these ceremonies where you see individuals who are very proudly get their certificates for achieving financial literacy, which is something that all of us need to have in our lives. To see young people getting the opportunities, to see our residents getting the opportunities. That's important for them, for their lives. And that's something that I think all of us should treasure. I also am very, very proud of its innovative approach. And what I mean by that is we were able to capture this $30 million choice initiative, and Joe is going to talk about this a little bit later, our partnership with the federal government. Because I think of the ingenuity, the creativity that we have shown, that the Housing Authority has shown. And Tony does a great job, and I want to thank you for your strong, strong leadership. It's important to have someone as creative as he is. But again, my history goes back to when I served in Congress, and another vivid memory is after we had done Hillside and we obtained the Hope 6 grant, and I was so proud of myself because I was a new freshman congressman at the time, and I was just sort of patting myself on the back and got a call from Ricardo Diaz, who was then with the Housing Authority, and he brought me in and said, okay, thank you very much, now get us one for Park Lawn. And I'm like, well, I'm not done clapping for myself for the first one. And again, starting with Ricardo, obviously with Tony, what we have seen is leadership here that challenges city administration, works with the federal government, and is able to leverage these assets. So we do not have an ordinary housing authority in the city of Milwaukee. Again, as someone who served on the housing committee in Congress, I can tell you that this housing authority is better than most, if not all, housing authorities in this nation. And I see Alice from Congressman Moore's office, and she understands, again, the importance of the partnerships. So I do have a proclamation. I won't read it because we have a busy schedule, but I'll go to the punchline. And the punchline is, I thought on 75 years, it's time for the Housing Authority to have its own day. So now, therefore, I, Tom Barrett, Mayor of the City of Milwaukee, do hereby proclaim today, Wednesday, July 17th, 2019, to be the Housing Authority of the City of Milwaukee Day throughout the City of Milwaukee. So, there you go. So, Pete's popsicles for everybody.
Thank you so much, Mayor Barrett. We appreciate your continued leadership and guidance, and we look forward to many years to come and serve you more. Next, I'd like to introduce Joseph Galvin. We've been fortunate to have our next speaker visit the Housing Authority numerous times to deliver good news, which is always great. Joseph P. Galvin is the Regional Administrator of the Midwest Regional Office of the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. In his role, Mr. Galvin is responsible for the oversight and delivery of HUD programs and services in Illinois, Michigan, Minnesota, Ohio, and Wisconsin. He previously served in the role from 2001 through January of 2009, and once again, we'd like to welcome back Mr. Joseph P. Galvin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On behalf of President Trump and HUD Secretary Ben Carson, it is an honor to be here with you to celebrate your 75th anniversary. Mayor Barrett, when I knew you as Congressman, we were working together to do many good things. When HUD looks at projects, when HUD takes, I'm not going to say it takes a risk, but when HUD looks at giving funds to housing authorities, we want to make sure that those funds are used effectively, efficiently, to make sure that people have safe, decent, affordable housing. And as the mayor said back when he was a congressman and the funds first came to the table, We knew at HUD back then that the Housing Authority of the City of Milwaukee would change the lives of many, many residents. And like Mayor Barrett, when I came up here the first time to do a groundbreaking, shaking hands, congratulating everybody, got pulled to the side and said, we want another grant. This Housing Authority, this board does not stop. And we're happy to work with them. A couple of things. The Housing Authority of the City of Milwaukee has been raising the bar. As the mayor said, he's had the opportunity to look at housing authorities across the nation. I recently had a housing conference in Chicago, brought together the different housing authorities, different cities, different state representation from the 6 states. I can't say that this housing authority is the best, but you're certainly a lot better than most in the country. And that's because of the leadership. Not only the leadership with the board, the leadership with Tony, but also the leadership with the mayor and Congress. We all work together. It's not about one side or the other side. It's about making sure that every resident that's being served is given the opportunity to have their children, our most precious resource, to be raised and grown, and the opportunity to be the best person and use their God-given talents to the extreme. I'd like to say thank you to our veterans here. Not too long ago, my uncle, who was a World War II veteran, passed away. But he was willing to give his life for our nation, as many of you veterans, willing to put your lives on the line so that we can live, so that we can enjoy, so that we can endure. I had the opportunity to be in the building, the new building, and see the wraparound services. What a tremendous facility for the residents who are going to be living there and for everyone that's going to be served. A couple of other things. Section 3. Section 3 is a program that we at the Department of Housing and Urban Development are pushing to make sure that residents have the opportunity to participate in contracts. In the old days, companies would come in, build multi-million-dollar projects, and residents would be put as receptionists, sweeping up some of the trash. That was not, and is not, the background of Section 3. Section 3 is made to give residents real skills, real life choices, so that they can use that experience and then move on. Also with the businesses. So I'm going to be working more closely with Tony, with the board, with City, to make sure that Section 3 continues to be the successful program it's been here in Milwaukee. I have many more remarks, and here's the issue. There's a lot of remarks because there's been a lot of victories. And you can be talking about all this stuff all day long, and that's a good thing. But I'm going to sum it up by saying two things. One, I look forward to eating the empanadas and the barbecue. But also, our commitment to you, the commitment of this administration, the commitment of the mayor and the board, and each and every one of you, as we all work together, side by side, hand in hand, to lift up those who are at most risk, those who are at most need, because we are one community. We are one people. We love, cherish, and have hope for our fellow man, our sister, our brothers, our children. That's our commitment to you. And Dale Darrow, I don't know where you are in the office. He's the head of the Milwaukee office here. But he's going to be making sure that we have this great relationship continuing. So having said that, I want to say thank you. And if God is not in this, I don't know where he is, because he has blessed you. So God bless all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Joseph. We appreciate your kind words, and we're looking for another check. I'm sorry, I'm chairman, I gotta ask. One last thing before we move on to the agenda. I want to make sure that everybody here is aware. As Joseph has said, you know, you travel around the country. I've been very fortunate representing the Housing Authority, not only as chairman, but with different national groups and things. I would like our entire staff, there's too many here to individually recognize, and it can be either present staff, past staff, but please stand up so we can recognize the best staff in the country, the Housing Authority of the City of Milwaukee. And I can tell you, this is the greatest housing authority in the country. So, you stand corrected, sir. Sorry. All right. Next, we're going to move into the next part of the agenda.
Okay. This is the 2019 annual meeting of the Housing Authority of the City of Milwaukee Board of Commissioners, and the next two items are the elections of officers, chair and vice chair. The first is the election of the chair. May we have a motion to open the nominations for the office of chair?
Move that we open the nomination for the chair.
Second. Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Is there a nomination for the office of the chair?
I'd like to nominate Mark Wagner to be chair of the Housing Authority, City of Milwaukee.
Second.
Are there any other nominations? Is there a,
I move that we close the nominations.
Second. Okay, no further discussion on that. I apologize, my phone is going off. Must be some kind of divine intervention there. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Roll call. Well, I'm sorry, roll call, please.
Commissioner Dono?
Aye.
Commissioner Daniels? Aye. Commissioner Lott? Aye. Commissioner Diaz?
Aye.
Commissioner Van Alstine?
Aye.
Commissioner Vandenberg? May we have a motion to open the nominations for office of chair?
I'd like to move that we open the nominations for vice chair.
Second.
Okay. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
I'd like to nominate Ricardo Diaz as vice chair of the Housing Authority, City of Milwaukee.
Second.
Are there any other nominations?
I'd like to move that we close nominations.
Second.
Okay. All in favor of the motion to close the nomination signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Donald?
Aye.
Commissioner Daniels? Aye. Commissioner Lott? Aye. Commissioner Wagner?
Aye.
Commissioner Van Alstine? Aye. Commissioner Vandenberg?
Thank you. That's the election of officers. I just want to take a brief moment and thank the board for giving me another opportunity to serve as chair. I consider it a very great honor and privilege to serve as chairman, and I will continue to do everything I can to continue the great job that this group has performed. Ricardo, anything?
No, thank you.
All right.
Next item on the agenda is a report from the Secretary Executive Director, Mr. Tony Perez.
Mr. Perez.
I think we should be moving with Mr. Anivan here, and our CFO. Okay. Well, it takes a village to raise a village, and 5'6", I need all the shoulders that I can stand with. So, however, the CFO, it's not only a mental giant, he also has a heart that is bigger than himself. He doesn't represent the highest stature of the Housing Authority with the others, but he has a lot to say. Fernando?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
For the past 75 years, the Housing Authority has been creating ripples of hope. I was part of that for the past 10 years as the Chief Financial Officer. The numbers you will see on the board actually does not do justice to what we've been creating for the past, just in my experience, for the past 10 years. And we will show that to you later on. If you look at it, Board of Commissioners, our total assets stood at around 400 million by the end of December 31st, 2018. With the ripples we've been creating, we should have been standing at around $1 billion mark. But that's not who we are. We create these resources and we deploy them back to help improve the quality of life for our residents. We only keep a little bit to keep our standing and our standing with the investors and underwriters to be acceptable to them in terms of risk management. So right now, at the end of the year, we stood at around 38 million in net working capital and 43 million in cash and investments. If we go to our results of operation for the past 12 months, we generated around 110 million in total revenue, and our net income before depreciation, because that's what we're concerned about, is around 11 million. That gives us an unrestricted reserve which we can use to help sustain our operations, especially those non-HUD related projects, at around 39 million. With all of this, in 2018, we still keep our rating with Standard & Poor's at A+. That was the next. So we're good for the next 3 years. That was a rigid underwriting that we did in 2018. And in 2017, we had an unmodified report from our external auditors. It's just a fancy way of saying by the auditors, unmodified report. It is actually clean, in layman's language, it's clean report. So that's where we are. We're hoping to continue in the coming years with the same report.
Great job. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
And now I'd like to introduce our fabulous Executive Secretary Director, Mr. Tony Perez. A round of applause.
Thanks.
To my colleague and friend, John Goodsman from St. Paul, the Director of the Housing Authority in St. Paul. So, it could be like claim that it's a running joke, but it's actually in sincerity that I still say, even though he's my junior, that when I grow up, I want to be like John. And so I have an approach avoidance conflict about being best or less than. We just want to be in the same sphere that you exist. Thank you for being here today. Thank you for all those that we have a debt of gratitude in your support, to the board, to the mayor, Mayor Barrett. 2004, I think that's the time that we joined hands, and you're going to hear about some of those accomplishments. We also support an appreciation for those that are critical of us, for forcing us to be stronger, to be different. And for those that wish us less than that, give us patience so we can suffer you well. And so for that we strive. That which manifests is before you. This is a construction site. That line, by the way, is for The Art of Racing in the Rain, which is a particularly interesting book. But it's also about the human capital expressed today in not only the residents that are here, those that had relocated, those that had come back, and the leadership that the local residents actually provide. It's intriguing to me that this morning I'm approached by that leadership to tell me about the shortcomings of certain things. I wish I could have taken a moment and said, how about if we enjoy the longcomings of today? But that tells you that they don't fall asleep at the helm. And for that, we're thankful for that too. There are acts of commission and there are acts of omission. And there are certain things that could have happened and had happened in 75 years without having to do anything more, without diminishing it, anything more than what an operation as an enterprise of a housing authority it is. But there's also acts of omission. The fact that Westland was here, 75 acres, largest public housing development in the state, 750 units, this could have remained the same way. And I'm hard pressed that we have been pointed at fault for not changing or affecting the trajectory of this area, not only in terms of the bricks and mortar, like the mayor liked to say, but also on the human capital, like the mayor pointed out. But we took this as an act of commission, and we now own it. This place used to have the proverbial, remember when they talk about the 100-year flood? The one that seems to come every 10 years now? So this is proverbially inundated. And right now, water sequestration alone for here, and the retention, so they can actually be dispensed slowly into Lake Michigan, is over 3 million gallons of water that now do not flood these beautiful new units. And I invite you to please drive by on your way out to the east side of this development as this continues to develop. And soon, right where that truck is giving us the beep that we don't want today, but it still is a construction site, there will be townhomes that will be developed, taking place in there. New experimentation for communities. The lighting in this development saves over 50% of the past cost in terms of energy consumption that it had before. Actually, in 2012, at the silver level for neighborhood development, this was the only neighborhood development in the world that got that rating. Not in Milwaukee, not in Metro, not in Wisconsin, not in the United States, in the world. But we don't stop to think about those things enough. However, they were not put together with that intention. They were not. We hear about, quote, investments in neighborhoods as opposed to, quote, investments into downtown. For the love of God, this is $150 million and counting that are coming through this area. Consider that as something that is happening during this timeline. There's the experience of that. Thank you for that narrative of 75 years. It speaks of 5 directors in 75 years. I know that longevity alone is not an assurance of success, but it does count. Just think about the passengers in the Miracle in the Hudson. I bet they wanted an experienced pilot that day, and they got it. And they're telling the story. We'd like to commend and applaud the administration on the new initiative under Secretary Carson around exploring possibilities of removing barriers and regulatory elements that increase the cost of building affordable housing in the United States. Putting all this together on the average cost 20% more than with other actors in play. So anytime that we can actually mitigate that, maintain control, maintain oversight, but see what parts can make us more competitive so these efforts can be replicated coming over. I would like to note that this is all about the villagers, and actually one of them approached me today and said, why me? Why you're acknowledging me? Because not everybody that is doing the good, large work out there gets noted enough. We don't have some judging panel. It's people that not only are partnering with us in good stewardship, but also those that are doing good things side by side with us that we'd like to honor today. Paul Williams is our coordinator for this project, and so he be the man. So get over here.
Tony. Good morning, Commissioners, Mayor Barrett, Regional Administrator Galvan, and all of our distinguished guests today. As we reflected on the Housing Authority's 75 years of service to Milwaukee, we've been inspired by the words of Robert F. Kennedy delivered to the University of Cape Town in June of 1966. Each time a man stands up for an ideal or acts to improve the lot of others or strikes out against injustice, he sends forth a tiny ripple of hope, and crossing each other from a million centers of energy and daring, those ripples build a current which can sweep down the mightiest walls of oppression and resistance. Throughout the Housing Authority's 75 years, there have been countless ripples of hope reflected in the lives of those Milwaukee citizens who who have found refuge from poverty within the walls of the Housing Authority's quality, affordable housing. This housing provides the foundation for good quality of life, and the Housing Authority has enhanced it by partnering with an array of social services that provides our residents opportunities for good health, well-being, economic growth, and pathways to independence. Today, we have provided you with a document that is a sort of greatest hits historical timeline that you can read and share, but we'd like to call out a few key moments highlighting HACM's history and impact. Milwaukee's first foray into federally financed affordable housing was Park Lawn, which you see on the screen there. It was a family development built in 1937 under the Works Progress Administration during the Great Depression. Park Lawn was eventually turned over to the Housing Authority by the federal government in 1950. As mentioned earlier, the Housing Authority's first construction endeavor of its own after its founding in 1944 was to partner with the city to build permanent housing for returning veterans and their families after World War II, replacing temporary housing that included trailers and Quonset huts. In 1949, this resulted in the North Lawn, South Lawn, and Berryland housing developments, almost 1,000 apartments that were originally for veterans and over time became general, unsubsidized, affordable housing. During the late 1940s and 1950s, Hillside Terrace and West Lawn, two large family housing developments were built, with Lapham Park and Highland Park following in the 1960s. Also, during the 1960s and early 1970s, 13 high-rise developments were built around the city to house seniors and persons with disabilities. And in the 1970s, the federal government changed policy away from building public housing and started a new program, providing rent assistance vouchers for residents to use with private market landlords. We are here at Victory Manor today because this place connects us both to our beginnings and to the agency's future. As has been mentioned, the Housing Authority began its service to the Milwaukee community by providing housing to young veterans returning from World War II so that they might build their lives just as the nation and world were rebuilding after years of war and destruction. Since 2004, the Housing Authority has worked with a number of partners to provide housing for those that bore the burden of protecting our freedoms, our veterans. In partnership with the VA, the Housing Authority renovated the historic Surgeons' Quarters at the VA grounds in 2004, creating 13 units of single-room occupancy for veterans. The Housing Authority also provides veterans with over 300 VASH vouchers, that's the Veterans Affairs Supportive Housing Program, that provides homeless veterans with permanent housing and supportive services through the VA. The Housing Authority has also created a Veterans Preference Housing here at Victory Manor with supportive services by the Center for Veterans Issues. Some units are dedicated to helping veterans who were formerly homeless or at risk for homelessness to find stability and to receive supportive housing, supportive services through the Center for Veterans Issues. And currently, work is also being done by the Alexander Company to renovate the historic Soldiers' Home. We all know the beautiful old main building that is near the stadium. That project is to be completed in the next 1 to 2 years. The Housing Authority is providing 101 project-based VASH vouchers for this project to provide permanent housing for homeless veterans on the VA grounds.
John Beck, Joe Alexander, you're in the crowd? What's happening over there, Sue? Why don't you get up and let us know? Please. Up and up. Stand up. Don't be shy. There you go. You have an event too. When is that happening? August 9th. Be there.
So that's a very exciting date. That is the groundbreaking for the renovations of Old Main, August 9th from 10 to 11 a.m. Please join us if you can.
And it is our honor and pleasure to be able to be with the Alexander Group. That was a building that was chartered by Abraham Lincoln 2 weeks before he was assassinated. And it was built by the widows and wives of Civil War veterans. So please join us to be able to do this wonderful next phase. So thank you for the Alexander Group. We appreciate it.
So today, with the addition of Victory Manor here at West Lawn Gardens, we celebrate the continued renewal of the neighborhood once known as West Lawn, and now known as West Lawn Gardens, as a place of life, growth, and opportunity. After an intensive community planning process that began 10 years ago, West Lawn was reimagined for renewal as a healthy, sustainable neighborhood for all. The intention was both to renew this neighborhood's affordable housing, but to also do it so within the context of a mixed-income, mixed-use neighborhood that was a model of environmental sustainability. To date, since 2010, 340 new units of housing have been completed at West Lawn Gardens. That's almost 500,000 square feet of living space within completed dwelling units. Beyond that living space, the project has entailed completely new infrastructure, parks, playgrounds, traffic calming design, and many sustainable features. Phase 1 of the work has garnered impressive recognitions, including certification, as Tony mentioned, as the world's highest rated LEED neighborhood by the U.S. Green Building Council. And last year, it received the HUD Secretary's Opportunity Empowerment Award, one of 3 prestigious national planning awards from the American Planning Association. Between its housing portfolio and its Section 8 rent assistance program, the Housing Authority provides over 11,000 low-income households with quality, affordable housing options. All of this housing and revitalization work has been an economic engine benefiting Milwaukee and Wisconsin. Under the leadership of Mayor Barrett and the Housing Authority Board of Commissioners since 2004 alone, HACM has competed for and brought in more than $252 million in financing to sustain and improve the public housing developments that were built in the 1950s and 1960s. And in partnership with WIDA, invested $197 million in tax credits to revitalize developments all across the city. That's a total of $503 million of investment since 2004 alone.
Great job.
The Housing Authority's Rent Assistance Program provides more than $35 million in housing assistance payments each year to over 2,900 private landlords across the city. Since 2004, that's $525 million in housing assistance payments that have been made to private landlords, thus supporting affordable housing and helping the local economy. A review of HACM's economic impact by a third-party evaluator shows a $116 million annual positive impact to the city of Milwaukee. Plus, we do pay an annual pilot or payment in lieu of taxes to the city, and $139 million annually to the state of Wisconsin. This includes an annual employment impact of 670 jobs each year. So during its 75-year history, we conservatively estimate that the Housing Authority has helped nearly 170,000 people find housing stability, providing them with a safety net so that they could support their family, build assets, and for most, to eventually move out of subsidized housing into the private market. Currently, the Housing Authority's housing programs impact over 3,000 seniors aged 62 and older, over 3,400 non-senior adults and children with disabilities, over 2,100 children less than 5 years old, and 7,400 school-aged children, which is equivalent to almost 10% of the total enrollment of Milwaukee Public Schools. To paraphrase Matthew Desmond, author of Evicted, everything else falls apart. Without stable housing, everything else falls apart. Since 1944, the Housing Authority has worked to ensure that low-income families have the stable housing they need. And we recognize that that housing is the foundation, the starting point, the launch pad. And if housing is the launch pad, then the services we partner with it are the fuel that propels our residents to greater stability, independence, and a better way of life. We call these services housing with heart. So we'd like to highlight just a few examples of our community services programs that have had the greatest impact since 2004. The Housing Authority's Education Initiative was formed to help children and families in 2 of our developments keep the children enrolled in school and attending every day, assisting them with resources and support to graduate. Since 2004, 91% of those children have graduated on time from high school, compared with the average on-time graduation rate of 69%. Many of you...
I want to repeat that, 91%.
That's a program that's 17 years old, so that's over 17 years. Since 2004, the Housing Authority has assisted 241 public housing residents with scholarships worth $472,000 so that they are able to attend college. During the past 5.5 years since our revamped Section 3 plan, HACM's Section 3 program has resulted in 287 low-income individuals hired by the Housing Authority or our contractors or their subcontractors. That's 64% of the total new hires, which is significantly higher than our goal of 30%. And during that 5.5 years, almost 31%, or $26 million, of our contracting dollars went to businesses that substantially hire low-income individuals. Minority and women-owned businesses have also benefited from our procurement processes through our Emerging Business Enterprise Program. Over the past 2 years alone, $35 million of the total $60 million in contracts, or 58%, have been awarded to minority or women-owned businesses. So continuing our look at employment assistance, since 2004, the Housing Authority's Family Self-Sufficiency Program has assisted almost 100 public housing and Section 8 residents every year in finding and sustaining employment. And here at Westlawn Gardens, through our Choice Neighborhood Initiative case management program, we've been successful in reducing unemployment among workable adults, and get this, from 55% 2 years ago to 24% today.
Yeah.
Case management works, and we're proof positive of it right here in the neighborhood. And since 2004, Make Your Money Talk, one of our hallmark programs with our great partner WIBIC, has contributed to building the financial sustainability of our residents. We've had over 2,400 residents attend their financial education program. Over 1,100 have opened an individual development account to save their money, and 433 of those have made purchases such as homes, cars, starting a business that have changed their lives. And since 2004, the Housing Authority's Home Ownership Program has resulted in helping 371 low-income individuals purchase their own homes, moving from subsidized housing into their own homes as property taxpayers. All of these and other programs, combined with stable housing, truly have been the means to increased opportunity for many Milwaukeeans, the pathway to their own version of the American dream. They are the ripples that build a current which can sweep individuals, families, and communities through and beyond the oppression of poverty and disinvestment. So I've shared many statistics and numbers so far today. At this point, we want to take a few moments and highlight a few individuals who have participated and impacted by these programs. We call them our ripples of hope. First, I'd like to introduce Mr. Troy Burks. If you could stand. And if you'd like to keep standing, and Norma, if you'd like to join him standing as well. So Troy lived at Westlawn for 27 years before the relocation process started in preparation for the new housing. In fact, we have a photo here on the screen of a 9-year-old Troy in the 1990 newsletter of the Silver Spring Neighborhood Center. Troy's case manager, Norma Duckworth, challenged him during the relocation process to think about how he could make a long-term difference for his family. The answer for Troy was homeownership. He had been working for 9 years and started saving money. He attended homeownership preparation classes, and he worked to prepare his credit for his loan. We are very pleased to share that through his hard work and determination and the support of Norma and others, Troy closed on the purchase of his home in October of 2017. Congratulations. Next, we have Angelita Ingram. Angelita, if you'd like to stand, and Crystal as well. Crystal Reed-Hardy is our HR director here at the Housing Authority. So Angelita's been a HACM resident since 1998. She's a mother of 7, grandmother of 5, with 1 on the way. Congratulations. Angelita credits her HACM housing with stabilizing her life and her family. But beyond the housing, she's found a new pathway through HACM's At Promise Resident Training Program, a program of the HACM Human Resources Department under Crystal's direction. As part of that program, Angelita has spent the last 1.5 years working for the Housing Authority part-time in an administrative position, acquiring new skills and honing existing ones. And she's been attending MATC with the support of a HACM scholarship. She's also a participant in the Make Your Money Talk program, saving money for a future home. We're very pleased to share with all of you that she's a big step closer to her dreams of a new job and that home. She recently graduated from MATC with an Administrative Professional Associate's degree. And she had a 3.8 GPA. Congratulations, Angelita, and thank you, Crystal and the HR team, for your support of that program. Next, we have Thomas Green here with Greg Martin from WIBIC. If you could stand, please. So, Thomas lived in West Lawn while in his teens and early adulthood. He moved to St. Louis for a while, but then moved back to Milwaukee to be with family. While in St. Louis, he started to cook, learned from a mentor not only how to prepare food, but also how to efficiently manage a food service operation. His dream has been to own a food truck serving healthy soul food options. Thomas currently lives just north of West Lawn Gardens today, and because he is part of the Choice Neighborhood area, he was able to access a business loan through the Choice Neighborhood Small Business Revolving Loan Fund, a partnership between Choice Neighborhood, the Housing Authority, and WIBIC. Thomas has worked with WIBIC loan officer Greg Martin to take out the loan and invest in his dream, a brand new food trailer and smoker emblazoned with the logo for his business, Mr. Green's. We're very excited to have him here and the smoker here today. Thomas actually launched the business last Saturday at the corner of 60th and Silver Spring. There were long lines all day long. I dare say it's the best pulled pork in the city. So let's take one more moment to acknowledge and congratulate Thomas and thank Greg and the entire WIBIC team for the support. And finally, we're pleased to present Mr. Calvin Osley, a veteran resident here at Victory Manor. If you could stand, Calvin, along with Brandon. Calvin served in the Navy as a medic at Great Lakes Academy during the Vietnam War, helping to provide care for veterans who were airlifted back to the U.S. for care. Following the war, he suffered from PTSD, addiction, and lingering health challenges due to exposure to Agent Orange. He worked as an electrician in California for one point, but also endured a stretch of homelessness while there. Calvin made his way back to the Midwest and started receiving care through the Zablocki Medical Center. He reached out to the Center for Veterans Issues to see if they could assist him in finding new housing that would also provide him the support he needed to ensure he could stabilize his housing and also look after his health. Through CVI, he found Victory Manor, where he moved into the building 3 months ago and continues to receive that support through his case manager, Brandon. Please give Calvin and Brandon a warm welcome. Calvin, thank you for your service, and to all of the veterans who are now living here at Victory Manor, we appreciate your service to our country. So thank you to Troy, Angelita, Thomas, and Calvin for allowing us to share your stories. You inspire us and provide proof that these public and private investments really do work to change lives and communities. So what's next for the Housing Authority? We have much on the horizon. The work will continue here at West Lawn Gardens and through the Choice Neighborhood Initiative. Starting in spring of next year, as Tony mentioned, we'll start seeing 138 new family townhomes rise in that space there, and that's with the support of WIDA. Work will also continue to build financing for the next stages of the neighborhood's revitalization, which will top out at nearly 1,000 new affordable and market-rate homes within the next several years. Choice Neighborhood has expanded its footprint within Milwaukee with a new planning grant awarded to Marquette University and the Near West Side Partners. That grant will develop a plan for revitalization of the area that includes renovations at HACM's College Court Public Housing Building. We look forward to continuing to work with all of our partners on the Near West Side. And through the Rental Assistance Demonstration Project, a HUD program that preserves affordable housing through the transition of public housing to the Section 8 rent assistance funding platform, we anticipate investments of $150 million on rehab projects and $205 million on new construction projects over the next decade. At Hillside, near downtown, we are launching Hillside Works with the support of a $2.3 million HUD Jobs Plus grant. This program will help to build a culture of work and provide job coaching to ensure that every Hillside resident has the support they need to find gainful employment and to support their families. And with the support of the Housing Authority's development arm, Travaux, we are challenging expectations by planning a high-rise and near the north side of downtown that, like this neighborhood for all we are creating here at West Lawn Gardens, will provide housing options for people of all economic backgrounds and ensure critical affordable housing on the popular east side. Finally, we want to continue our work with all of you, our partners, including many of you who we've worked with for decades, to merge housing with services so that we can better change the trajectory of lives and neighborhoods in Milwaukee. So as we always do, we end with a few recognitions of individuals who have played a key role in our lives and our work. We'll start with Jim Wikowiak. Unfortunately, Mr. Wikowiak could not join us today, but we do want to recognize him. Jim Wikowiak has been in service to the residents of Milwaukee for 3 decades. While many know of his 16 years of service as the alderman for the 12th District of Milwaukee, we here at the Housing Authority commend him for his many years of service as a member of the Board of Commissioners. During his tenure as the Commissioner of the Housing Authority, Mr. Wikowiak supported the Housing Authority's repositioning of its public housing portfolio, diversification of its financing and organizational structures to more effectively leverage resources, expansion of partnerships to enhance job training and employment, and the incorporation of green infrastructure and renewable energy. Some of the major developments during Commissioner Wikowiak's tenure were the Tech Force Center, Olga Village, Beecher Terrace, West Lawn Gardens, and the establishment of Travaux. So we thank Commissioner Wikowiak for his commitment to our mission and for providing accessible and affordable housing that improves the quality of life for our residents.
Paul, excuse me. Just on behalf of the Board of Commissioners, I would like to personally thank Jim Wikowiak. I know Michael and Ricardo and others have had the privilege of working with Jim. He was a very important part of our team, and we miss him very much, but he did an outstanding job. So please honor him one more time with a big round of applause.
And as we honor our next honorees, if the honoree could please move to the screen, right where Pat, our cameraman, is standing, and meet with Tony and Mayor Barrett for the presentation and a photo. Next, we honor Tom Ellis. After 23 years in banking and rising to become the president of M&I Bank, Tom Ellis was able to enjoy an early retirement after BMO Harris Bank acquired M&I. He could have continued to travel the world and enjoy the good life, which he had done for several years, but he decided to take on a new challenge, one completely different from the world of banking, as the executive director for Silver Spring Neighborhood Center. Over his 3 years with the center, Tom brought his banking and corporate expertise to bear on helping to stabilize the center's funding, working to strengthen Silver Spring's Elaine Shriver Early Childhood Development Center as a high-quality early learning center, and ensuring the residents of West Lawn and the entire northwest side of Milwaukee have continued access to crucial basic services and programs. We wish Tom success in his second retirement, knowing that he will continue to be active in the community. Thank you, Tom. Next, let's welcome Dr. Patricia Hoban. So something happened to Dr. Hoban on her way to a career in the sciences. After receiving a doctorate in biophysics and biochemistry from Yale, and after a number of years as a science and technology advisor shaping federal policies for the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services in Washington, she decided to take on a new challenge: how to impact the education of our youth. In 2007, Patricia created from scratch a new school chartered by Milwaukee Public Schools called Carmen High School of Science and Technology, serving primarily Hispanic students in a low-income neighborhood on the south side of Milwaukee. In 2017, this school, Carmen South, was ranked by U.S. News and World Report as the state's top public high school. In 2013, Patricia took on a new challenge when she agreed to take over a consistently low-performing middle high school on the city's northwest side, expanding her curriculum from high school into middle school and changing the demographics from a primarily Hispanic school to one that serves mostly African Americans. Carmen Northwest is located just 4 blocks from where we are today. While it may not happen as fast as she hopes, Carmen Northwest is indeed transforming lives of its students. No one that has attended its annual College Day walks away unimpressed when 100% of its high school graduates receive an acceptance to at least one 4-year college. And today, Dr. Hoban takes on a new challenge as the new executive director of City Forward Collective, which has combined 2 nonprofit organizations, Schools That Can Milwaukee and PAVE, to work towards reducing educational inequities and ensuring every Milwaukee child has access to a great school. Thank you, Dr. Hoban, and good luck. In 1974, a young Barbara Lee and the late Michael Moynihan took their love of performance art and founded the Friends Mime Theater, which morphed over the years into the nonprofit Milwaukee Public Theater. 45 years later, Dr. Barbara Lee is finally retiring and closing Milwaukee Public Theater. The theater did not perform in a fancy performance space, but brought their work to the community in the streets, parks, and neighborhoods of Milwaukee. Those who know Barbara know that she had strength of character and that she persevered over all obstacles, including a spinal injury from a 1987 car accident that left her disabled, and over the financial challenges of sustaining a small arts nonprofit over 45 years. Fittingly, Barbara is not here today as she is attending the National Puppetry Festival in Minneapolis. So accepting on her behalf is Brian Rott of Quasimodo Theater, which will help to carry on Barbara's legacy here in Milwaukee. Next, please welcome Mark Sain. Mr. Sain has served the people of Milwaukee in many capacities over the years. In 1980, he became a firefighter for the Milwaukee Fire Department, rising through the ranks and serving the people of Milwaukee as a firefighter for 28 years before retiring as an assistant chief in 2008. In 2011, he decided to take on another challenge, that of our schools and our children's education. From 2011 to 2019, he was elected as a director on the Milwaukee School Board, representing District 1, which includes part of the West Lawn Choice neighborhood. For the last several years, he also was elected by his peers on the board as president. During his 8 years on the board, Mark has navigated the ever-changing eddies and currents of school board politics in his work to continue to improve Milwaukee's schools and to positively impact the children of Milwaukee. And we thank him for his service to our neighborhood's youth. Thank you. Today, we also honor Micah's Job and Economics Committee, and accepting the award is the chair, Lee Henderson Tatum. Micah, which stands for Milwaukee Inner-City Congregations Allied for Hope, is a faith-based organization made up of over 30 congregations. Micah congregations work for social justice to ensure that all members of the community have access to quality education for their children, that they have access to transportation, that they have access to affordable quality housing, that they have access to fair and equal justice through reform of the criminal justice system, and that they have access to jobs that are family-supporting wages. In 2012, Micah expressed serious concerns about Section 3 hiring and how it was implemented by the Housing Authority during the first phase of the West Lawn redevelopment. As a result, in 2014, the Housing Authority entered into a 4-year voluntary compliance agreement with the HUD to strengthen its Section 3 program. Over these 4 years, Micah has been a key partner to the Housing Authority in improving our procedures and outcomes. And the Housing Authority has met and continues to meet with Micah, Jobs and Economics Committee, every 2 months to discuss our activities and outcomes. In the end, the voluntary compliance agreement was completed last year with recognition from HUD that the Housing Authority has greatly exceeded goals for Section 3 programming for both hiring and contracting. Working together, the Housing Authority and Micah have been able to improve the lives of low-income Milwaukee residents, and we believe our Section 3 program is now a model for other cities. Thank you. Today, we also honor the High Rise Board of Directors and the Unsung Heroes Event Committee, who are represented by Board of Directors President Lucy Gaynor Hunter and Chair Stephanie Jones. If you could make your way. In addition, we ask that any other members of the Unsung Heroes Committee and the High Rise Board of Directors who are here, please stand or raise your hand. There we go. So in May of 2019, the High Rise Board of Directors hosted an Unsung Heroes ceremony to honor fellow residents for generously giving their time, talent, and resources for the betterment of their community. On that day, the resident members of the Board of Directors honored 22 residents from 12 different housing developments for their contributions to their housing community in a ceremony that included music, food, and inspirational speakers. Mayor Barrett that day said about the Unsung Heroes that you are what is good about Milwaukee. You are an inspiration.
Yeah.
The same could be said of all of the elected members of the High Rise Board of Directors and the resident organizations that work so hard to improve their communities. How about one more round of applause for the High Rise Board of Communities and the Unsung Heroes Committee. And today we honor Miss Gracie Leonard. Miss Gracie, as she is known by one and all, is the spiritual heart of the West Lawn community. She has lived at West Lawn since 1982, and if I might, she is the oldest resident of West Lawn. Miss Gracie worked hard all of her life working in housekeeping and nursing home care. She has served her community with dedication and commitment and has been elected board member on the West Lawn Resident Council since 2006. She's also served on the Silver Spring Neighborhood Center Board of Directors for 7 years and was an active member of the West Lawn Partnership for a Healthier Environment, a coalition of community stakeholders coordinated by the UWM College of Nursing. She has been an active member of her church at St. Bethel Church of God in Christ. Miss Gracie has always been there for the community throughout her whole life and even as she dealt with her health challenges herself. She stepped in to raise her 2 grandchildren late in life, providing them with the love and attention they desperately needed. She was the unofficial grandma of the neighborhood, watching out over the kids on the block and earning the respect of both the good kids and the ones that were acting out. Jim Bartos, former executive director of Silver Spring, remembers when she confronted some of older neighborhood teens that were gambling on porches at West Lawn, it does happen, telling them to stop and leave and encouraging them to be better. She confronted them directly and without fear, since she was doing what she knew was right, and they listened to her because of the respect that they had for her. Miss Gracie, through her gentleness, kindness, compassion, tough love, prayers, and hugs, has earned the respect of all who encountered her. Maya Angelou once said, "I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel." That, in a nutshell, is the power of Miss Gracie Leonard. She always makes you feel special, important, and loved, and you will never forget her. Please give a round of applause for Miss Gracie Leonard. And joining Ms. Gracie today is Jackie Burrell, President of the West Lawn Resident Council. And I want to take this moment to recognize that the West Lawn Resident Council last year was recognized as the best wet resident council in the nation by a national organization. Congratulations, and thank you for your work. The late Gwen T. Jackson, the oldest of 10 children, grew up in Milwaukee. After graduation from Lincoln High School, she took a summer job as a clerk for Bill's Colony, a men's clothing store. She spent the next 31 years working for Bill's, rising to become the Vice President of Human Resources. However, even during her busy career, she was dedicated to volunteering to better the community. Gwen began volunteering with the Red Cross and the Family Life Committee of the Milwaukee Urban League, and eventually left her career to take on the task of interviewing and placement for the Milwaukee chapter of the Red Cross, and became chair of the Red Cross Milwaukee chapter from 1981 to 1984. By 1988, she had risen to one of the highest volunteer positions in the American Red Cross organization, being named the National Chair of Volunteers, and served as National Chair for 4 years. In all, her volunteering with the Red Cross lasted 50 years. Gwen also served on countless boards of community organizations. She had a passion for issues related to child care and early childhood education. Those of you who remember Gwen Jackson, remember that she attended HACM's annual meetings every year, even up to her later years. And she was a frequent attendee and very interested in an active participant in all of our work. Martin Luther King Jr. once said, "Life's most persistent and urgent question is, what are you doing for others?" Gwen Jackson not only asked that question, but constantly answered it as well. Stephanie Jackson, her daughter, was with us earlier, but unfortunately had to leave. Hopefully you had a chance to say hi to her. But we do want to take a moment for a round of applause in memoriam for Gwen Jackson. And finally today, it's fitting that on this day that we celebrate Victory Manor, that we take time to honor not only a veteran, but someone who spent his life serving his country and his fellow veterans. The late Brigadier General Robert A. Colcroft was a student and football player at the University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh when he was drafted into the Army in 1966. He decided to go through Officers Candidate School to become an infantry officer. He was a Vietnam-era veteran who served in Korea and Panama, and he served 40 years in the active military and reserves, rising in the ranks eventually to Brigadier General before finally retiring in 2006. He serves as the Deputy Secretary of the Wisconsin Department of Veterans Affairs for 8 years, and he served as the National Commander of the National Association for Black Veterans. For the 14 years prior to his death, he served as the President and CEO of the Center for Veterans Issues, CVI, the state's largest provider of transitional housing for veterans. CVI provides advocacy services and housing to low-income, homeless, minority, and women veterans and their families. General Colin Powell once said, "The most important thing I learned is that soldiers watch what their leaders do. You can give them classes and lecture them forever, but it is your personal example they will follow." People followed General Colcroft because of the example he set, an example of service to country and veterans, and an example of selfless dedication and sacrifice to the goal of ending veterans' homelessness. Accepting this honor in his memory is Jackie Colcroft, his wife, Wanda Colcroft, his sister, and Ty Colcroft, his grandson. Please join us at the front. And one more. The American Legion was chartered and incorporated by Congress in 1919 as a patriotic veterans organization devoted to mutual helpfulness. It is the nation's largest wartime veterans service organization. Today, its membership stands at nearly 2 million in more than 13,000 posts worldwide in 50 states. This year marks the 100th anniversary of the American Legion. Camaraderie, community, good citizenship, compassion, respect, fairness, duty, honor, and service. At the American Legion, these are not just words, but are values to live by. The men and women of the American Legion have served for all of us, and we honor their service. We welcome Commander Tim Baranczyk of American Legion Post 416 to stand with us at the podium. And if you'll stay there, in addition to our NOMRA award, we are pleased to provide a $1,000 donation to the American Legion for the new memorial that's in development in this area. And we thank Travaux Incorporated for that donation. So a final round of applause for all of our honorees this year. Thank you for your support of the Housing Authority's mission. Immediately following the ceremony, we encourage that everyone moves quickly to the front of the building for the ceremonial flag raising with a flag that was flown over the U.S. Capitol building. And we'd like to do a one-group photo with all of the honorees after the meeting as well. And with that, I turn it back to Secretary Executive Director Tony Perez.
Good stories sometimes take a little longer than planned to be delivered. So thank you for being with all of us. So you see where acts of omission become acts of commission. And then the expectations rise. And we stand by those. I'll finish with, for the board, it's and some of them might know of this essay called The People I Like. And this is but a small part of it. I like people who are just with their peers and themselves. The people who are thankful for every day and for the good things that exist in their lives, who live every hour with a good spirit, giving the best of themselves, thankful for being alive, for being able to give away smiles, and to offer a helping hand without expecting anything in return. I like the people that are capable of understanding that the biggest mistake of a human being can make is to try to take away from his mind that which won't leave his heart. God bless us all.
Okay, these last items, as chairman, I wanted to first of all, again, recognize everybody, the residents, staff, all the people here, our guests, distinguished honorees. Thank you all. Big round of applause. And definitely our veterans that are here, both present, past, and beyond. And I will close with one of my favorites. He's a mentor, an individual that I have a lot of respect for, General Norman Schwarzkopf, the Bear. And he had two rules, unwritten rules that he used to say. When in charge, take charge. And we will do that. And rule 14, do the right thing. We will continue to do that. We thank you for your assistance. I'm going to adjourn the meeting shortly, but the honor guard is going to come up. We need to have a moment of silence for them to come. So gentlemen, if you want to assemble up here, while I get a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Whoops. Okay, just reminder, the honor guard will go out. There will be a flag raising at the Victory Manor, and I believe there's going to be a bugle. So we'll get them up, but please, when these gentlemen come up, silence so they can take care of it. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned.